The chilling saga of Edmund Kemper III, a figure etched into the annals of American true crime, unfolds with a disturbing clarity that continues to captivate and horrify. Known infamously as the Co-Ed Killer, Kemper represents a confluence of extreme intelligence and profound depravity, a man whose actions redefined the understanding of serial violence. His story is not merely a chronicle of murder, but a deep dive into the psychological abyss that can manifest within an individual, leaving a trail of unspeakable acts and enduring questions. The crimes attributed to Edmund Kemper primarily terrorized the late 1960s and early 1970s, casting a long shadow over the picturesque landscapes of Santa Cruz, California, and its surrounding serene communities. This coastal city, usually synonymous with surf culture and academic pursuits, became the unwitting backdrop for a series of murders that would shock the nation and forever alter its perception of safety. The tranquil environment served as a stark contrast to the brutal realities perpetrated by Kemper, highlighting the insidious nature of his hidden violence. At the core of his monstrous deeds lies a complex tapestry of psychological factors. Experts and investigators alike have pointed to a profoundly traumatic childhood as a foundational element in Kemper's development. His formative years were marred by a deeply troubled relationship with his mother, a central figure whose abusive tendencies are believed to have inflicted significant psychological damage. This fraught dynamic, coupled with deep-seated sadistic tendencies that manifested early in his life, created a volatile psychological cocktail that would eventually erupt into horrific violence. The absence of a stable, nurturing environment, replaced instead by constant conflict and psychological torment, fostered an internal landscape ripe for the cultivation of malevolence. Edmund Kemper was not a simplistic villain. Possessing an IQ of 145, he was a highly intelligent individual, a characteristic that allowed him to manipulate those around him and evade capture for an extended period. This intellectual prowess, tragically misdirected, made him a particularly cunning and dangerous predator. He was capable of engaging in sophisticated conversations, presenting a facade of normalcy that belied the dark thoughts churning beneath the surface. This duality, the intellectual capacity coupled with the capacity for extreme cruelty, makes his case a compelling, albeit terrifying, subject of study for criminologists and psychologists alike. His moniker, the Co-Ed Killer, arose from his preferred victim profile: young female college students and hitchhikers. These vulnerable individuals, often seeking rides or enjoying the freedom of youth, became targets in a macabre game of cat and mouse that Kemper orchestrated with chilling precision. The idyllic setting of Santa Cruz, home to several universities, inadvertently provided him with a hunting ground. The sense of trust and openness prevalent in such communities was systematically exploited by Kemper, leaving behind a legacy of fear and shattered innocence. The why behind Kemper's actions remains a subject of intense scrutiny and analysis. While a traumatic childhood and an abusive mother are frequently cited as contributing factors, they do not fully explain the depth of his sadism or the meticulous planning involved in his crimes. His psychological makeup suggests a profound lack of empathy, a characteristic often associated with psychopathy. This absence of emotional connection to his victims allowed him to commit acts of extreme violence without remorse, viewing his victims not as human beings but as objects for his gratification. The interplay of nature and nurture in shaping such a destructive personality continues to be debated, with Kemper's case serving as a stark example of the potential for human depravity. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Edmund Kemper III, born in 1948, evinced disturbing behaviors from a remarkably young age, foreshadowing the monstrous acts that would later define his existence. His childhood was characterized by a profound lack of emotional stability and an environment steeped in abuse. Raised primarily by his abusive mother, Kemper endured psychological torment and physical violence that experts believe laid the groundwork for his eventual descent into serial murder. This tumultuous upbringing, marked by his mother's constant denigration and emasculation, fostered deep-seated resentment and rage within the young Kemper. His passive father offered little solace or protection, effectively absent from the crucial developmental years that shaped Edmund's fractured psyche. The earliest manifestations of Kemper's violent tendencies were directed towards animals. Reports from his youth detail instances of him torturing and killing household pets, a classic red flag in the developmental trajectory of many serial offenders. These acts were not merely isolated incidents, but rather a chilling precursor to the escalating violence he would inflict upon humans. The lack of intervention or effective psychological support during these critical years allowed these sadistic impulses to fester and grow unchecked. The first human victims of Edmund Kemper were his own paternal grandparents. In 1964, at the tender age of 15, Kemper murdered them both in their California home. This horrific act led to his immediate institutionalization, where he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, a classification that would later be debated and revised. Despite the severity of his crime and the clear indicators of severe psychological disturbance, Kemper underwent psychiatric evaluation and was, astonishingly, released after 5 years. This decision was made against the explicit warnings from some staff members who noted his continued potential for future violence, a tragic misjudgment that would have devastating consequences. Upon his release, Kemper returned to Santa Cruz, ostensibly a free man, but inwardly a predator honing his craft. The period between 1972 and 1973 marked a terrifying escalation of his violence. He began a systematic series of murders targeting vulnerable female hitchhikers and college students in the Santa Cruz area. His modus operandi was disturbingly consistent. He would often pick up his victims while driving, feigning helpfulness, only to abduct, murder, and then dismember them. The acts of necrophilia he committed further underscored the profound depravity that had taken root within him. Among his notable victims during this period were 2 female hitchhikers and 4 co-eds from local universities, their lives brutally cut short by Kemper's calculated cruelty. The climax of his family-fueled rage culminated in the murders of his own abusive mother and her best friend. These acts were not random but deeply personal, born from years of resentment and a twisted desire for control and revenge. Edmund Kemper's chilling intelligence, reflected in his IQ of 145, played a significant role in his ability to evade capture for a period. He used his intellect to manipulate those around him, presenting a facade of normalcy that allowed him to blend into society. He meticulously planned his crimes, often disposing of bodies with a chilling efficiency that baffled law enforcement. His capacity for detailed recollection and articulation, later evident in his confessions, allowed him to construct elaborate narratives to deceive and mislead. The spree ended when Kemper, driven by an internal compulsion or perhaps a desire for recognition, voluntarily turned himself into authorities in 1973. His detailed confessions, delivered with a calm and detached demeanor, provided investigators with an unprecedented glimpse into the mind of a serial killer. During his trial, Kemper pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the evidence of his deliberate actions and manipulative intelligence was overwhelming. He was found guilty of 8 counts of murder and subsequently sentenced to 8 concurrent life terms in prison, where he remains today, a fixture in the California medical facility. Kemper has been extensively interviewed by FBI profilers, including the pioneering agents who formed the Behavioral Science Unit. These interviews offered chilling insights into his psychological landscape, contributing significantly to the developing field of criminal profiling. Experts have described him as a psychopathic sadist with pronounced narcissistic tendencies, a man utterly devoid of empathy and remorse. His case became a foundational study in understanding the complex interplay of psychological pathology and extreme violence, profoundly impacting the methodologies used by law enforcement to identify and apprehend dangerous individuals. His story underscores the critical need for vigilance and a deeper understanding of the warning signs of escalating violence. The public reaction to Edmund Kemper III's brutal crimes sent shockwaves across the nation, exposing the darkest recesses of human psychology and leaving an indelible mark on society. The sheer depravity, the meticulous planning, and the chilling lack of remorse displayed by Kemper provoked widespread horror and disbelief. His case highlighted the terrifying reality that such calculated evil could exist within an apparently intelligent and outwardly composed individual, challenging conventional understandings of criminality. It forced communities to confront uncomfortable truths about mental illness, institutional failures, and the vulnerability of individuals, particularly young women, in seemingly safe environments. Kemper's story, due to its sensational and disturbing nature, quickly permeated popular culture, leading to numerous media portrayals. He has been featured prominently in documentaries, true crime books, and fictionalized works, ensuring his name remains synonymous with serial murder. Perhaps one of the most impactful modern interpretations is his portrayal in the Netflix series Mindhunter. The series brought Edmund Kemper's chilling narrative to a new generation of viewers, meticulously recreating his interviews with FBI profilers Holden Ford and Bill Tench. The accuracy and chilling realism of Cameron Britton's depiction of Kemper in Mindhunter received widespread critical acclaim, offering a nuanced yet disturbing glimpse into the killer's psyche, his manipulative intelligence, and his capacity for detailed self-analysis despite his horrific deeds. This portrayal solidified his place in the cultural lexicon as an archetype of the intelligent, verbose, yet utterly psychopathic serial killer. The ongoing fascination with Edmund Kemper stems from a combination of factors: his high intelligence, the horrific nature of his crimes, and his remarkably candid confessions. These elements continue to make him a subject of intense study for criminologists, psychologists, and true crime enthusiasts alike. His articulate descriptions of his motivations and methods, delivered with a detached, almost academic tone, provide rare and disturbing insights into the mind of a serial killer. This unique access to his thought processes has cemented his contribution to criminology, making his case a cornerstone in the study of serial murderers. The extensive interviews conducted by FBI profilers with Kemper yielded invaluable data, significantly advancing the understanding of psychopathy, narcissistic tendencies, and the behavioral patterns associated with extreme violence. His detailed accounts helped shape the nascent field of criminal profiling, providing empirical evidence that aided law enforcement in developing more sophisticated methods for identifying and apprehending dangerous individuals. However, Kemper's case also ignites fierce debate regarding the effectiveness of psychiatric treatment for violent offenders and the very concept of evil. His release from a mental health institution, despite warnings from staff, remains a stark reminder of the complexities and potential failures within the justice and mental health systems. This aspect of his story continues to fuel discussions about the balance between rehabilitation and public safety, questioning whether some individuals are simply beyond therapeutic intervention. Beyond the academic and cultural impact, Edmund Kemper's story serves as a somber reminder of the critical importance of victim advocacy. The lives of the female hitchhikers, college students, co-eds, his paternal grandparents, his abusive mother, and her best friend were brutally cut short, their stories often overshadowed by the notoriety of their killer. His legacy underscores the ongoing need for unwavering support for those affected by violent crime and for remembering the victims not just as statistics, but as individuals whose lives were tragically lost. The lessons learned from the Kemper case are manifold. It underscored the desperate need for improved communication and data sharing between mental health institutions and law enforcement agencies regarding individuals deemed dangerous. The tragic consequences of fragmented information and misjudgment were laid bare. Furthermore, his story leaves lingering, profound questions about the origins of extreme violence. How does such a potent combination of innate predisposition, traumatic upbringing, and environmental factors coalesce to create a monster of his caliber? The case of Edmund Kemper III, who remains incarcerated, serving 8 concurrent life terms in prison, continues to challenge humanity's understanding of its own capacity for both brilliance and depravity, a chilling testament to the unfathomable depths of the human mind.